Welcome to the Nashville Post Podcast. My name is Nicolle Praino. I'm editor-in-chief of the Post, and on this show, we go inside the minds of company leaders who are reshaping our city's industries. This podcast is part of our Innovations and Ideas digital series brought to you by Cumberland Pharmaceuticals. For more stories and content like this, go to NashvillePost.com. Let's meet one of our disruptors.
My name is Adam Vassar. I'm the founder of an Adam app and the creator of Babe.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I want to ask you first what you think is the most innovative thing that you're doing right now.
Great question. The most innovative thing I probably am doing right now is bringing AI really to the forefront and the exact end users that will be doing it, not necessarily the enterprise level or a bigger company. As I started this venture, not even a year ago, I guess, working directly with really anyone and everyone that I found that was doing kind of hands-on, interesting work, entrepreneurial work, working for themselves, kind of building their own business. And so my initial strategy was meet people, see what their problems are, what are their issues specifically, and then how can I bring AI to kind of the forefront of that. And so most innovative as of right now would be my first product, Babe, which is an AI project management platform and estimating tool for the independent general contractors. And so not your large construction builders or very large commercial firms, or even ones that are more established and have, an army of people that can take care of a lot of tasks. I really wanted to bring this new technology to the people that are actually kind of doing the work and running everything. And so really my idea was Babe is to allow general contractors to really take on a lot of the work that a project manager would do, and whether that be estimating, creating project plans, sending communication to their clients, change orders, any of that. How can we integrate AI into that at their level? And so that's kind of been the mantra, I guess, of what I want to do with an Adam app. Since I started, I previously had worked in enterprise healthcare for over a decade. And so kind of going all aspects of that, whether that be the implementation side of things, healthcare tech, I guess I should clarify, but the implementation of those technologies, moving into the governance side of things around any changes that need to be made to the system. Okay, how do we decide what's a good change to be made? How do we implement it? What's the best way to go through that? And then the end of my career was more towards the front end of what's coming down the pike. And that's kind of when I started in my brain working up like what I would like to do if I kind of went off on my own. And so I knew right then and there that I wanted to focus on who would actually be using the product. A lot of times in the enterprise, the implementations and things just take a bigger army to do. A lot of times there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And so how can I, because it's just me right now, how can I really meet the needs of the end user? And has been my whole focus there is not the enterprise. What would move the needle for them on the front end, and not worrying about, if you work at a corporate office, education's going to want to have to say, regulatory is going to want to have a say in how everything goes. And so before you could even get a change implemented, it could be months down the road. And so I think with AI, it allows myself and the end users really to collaborate and be very nimble and create kind of custom products that really meet their direct needs without having a research project for, what is this going to do to your bottom line, or what's the ROI, or, what are the 10 best ways to implement it. It can be kind of much more kind of organic and grassroots. And so, in terms of what I'm doing innovation-wise, it's really just anything that's new on the forefront of AI. How can we leverage those tools into the platform I've built? And right now that's just focused on general contractors.
So you mentioned your background being in healthcare. and then also your newest venture that's in construction, two very different industries. So how did that come about where you said this first venture I want to do is in the construction space?
I have friends in the construction space, and really it was just a shadowing opportunity I had with one of my builder friends who has a very successful company here in Nashville, and just rode around with him for a couple days. And it really didn't, it was more so a project of I wanted to help him personally get more up to speed with his technology, not even really with AI. But after a few days of just he and I talking, I really, like, my brain really started kicking on, and just dealing with projects. Most everything I did in healthcare was project based, and so that takes communication to the client, communications to the vendors, whomever, and so it was kind of like a natural fit. Projects are kind of projects, and so I have certainly learned a lot about the nitty gritty of construction and what their needs are as builders and as buyers and managers of people in large projects and things like that. I kind of had a good understanding of what would drive the project and what would benefit the general contractors. But then, as I'm doing this, I start talking to a lot of people that are just having their homes built and hearing the struggles that they're having with not necessarily the output of the construction, but just the whole process in and of itself. It's a lot of times, some builders are working on 5 houses at a time. They're not communicating directly, or maybe someone's coming to dig a well and they forgot to communicate. That can be very disruptive to clients. And so really started working on, okay, how can I make the lives better of the client, and that therefore would kind of benefit the general contractor themselves. And so it was, kind of just fell into it. I didn't really say I want to go build a construction application, but it's been very eye-opening and kind of rewarding. But again, it's more or less, it's kind of project management and estimating, and then taking really what my clients and users are asking for, and just seeing what's out there with AI to see how we can kind of push that product along.
So you talked about project management and how AI is totally changing that, right? Is really a big topic of discussion in business, no matter the industry, which I think what we're talking about here points to. So talk a little bit about your background in project management and how maybe what you're doing now would have changed what you did in the past, if you could kind of compare the two.
I would almost say it's more of the administration of the project. And that's really where I think AI, and I try and focus my clients and anyone that's, maybe on the fence about, AI, especially in the construction industry and builder industry. There's some hesitation there with like, well, do I trust it? Does it make sense? And, is it going to replace a job in the future? Those kind of things. And I really look at it as, these are tools that can replace a lot of just the administrative burden of, okay, you have a project plan, let's say a floor plan or whatever, but now you need it to be you have the idea of what you want to do, but you have no way to rinse and repeat, kind of systematically say, okay, this is what the project looks like, without that being very manual. Most of the software that's out there, if they're even invested in some of the software, it's usually either for the larger enterprise, so not geared directly towards like an independent general contractor, or it's so manual and complicated that they just don't really have the time it takes to just go through and do all the formatting and documenting and things like that. And so I would say in terms of actually managing the project, I try and not be a contractor in any way, and I try and tell them that, Babe isn't going to do kind of the work for you, and that it's not going to do your job for you. What it's going to do is help you be much more efficient in what you're already likely doing. And so I would really say that's kind of the biggest difference. And what we used to do is it's just used to all be so manual. building an estimate can likely take thousands of lines on an Excel, doing manual calculations, looking at a floor plan, bringing, those measurements over into some sort of equation to kind of measure out. And now with AI and really how it's, I would say over the last year has been a vast increase in its capabilities and what I'm able to kind of build on my own. Is really bringing value kind of and taking that, just that burden off of them and off the general contractor. So like they can manage, they can see their project, everything's kind of working well, but they're not building it and spending days and hours taking the time to do that. One of my clients or users, I guess, would say that in the past, about 6 to 8 hours to build an estimate for a new construction build, and then to do the scheduling out over the however long the project would take, 6 to 12 months, another 6 to 8 hours on the forefront. And then, of course, that's daily churn and having to update and things like that. And so my kind of goal is anything that, if data is listed somewhere in the system, we should be able to use that and easily communicate all of that to the client. And so really it's just kind of taking that manual churn out of it.
I think what you just said makes complete sense. I've seen my husband, who works in the construction industry, spend hours on estimates, and he also spends a lot of time bringing home new tools and working with them. So it's very skills and trade-focused kind of industry, hands-on. So they might not be the first people to always adopt a new tech platform. How do you pitch Babe to construction founders so that way they say, yes, this is what I need?
I wish it was as easy as, yes, this is what I need. Some of them, likely most of them, need some hand holding, and especially if they're not used to using any sort of technologies to manage their business. I have certainly talked to contractors that have said, I am better served on paper, and that's just how I'm gonna do it. I've been successful since the 90s. I'm not changing. Don't move my cheese, which is, fine by me. What I really kind of show and how I like to phrase it and sell it to them is, if I'm building Babe correctly, it's actually a less of a technology barrier than even some of the free platforms could be, like Excel or Word or anything like that. It's manual. All the formatting and adding the information and all those things can be very time-consuming, even though it is now in a technology, quote-unquote, layer. Most, I would say, of the construction, larger software programs, even those don't necessarily have AI baked into them just yet. And so you're kind of setting up your own teams, your own estimates. It's still all very manual calculation. And so, yes, what I like to do is build a product that should feel intuitive and the way you would want it to be. So you already have a floor plan that your architect has drawn. Now you can just upload that into a system, and 80% of all of the data and formatting for the entire estimate and the project has already been pulled in. Now, of course, you're going to need to review that, ensure that the AI is accurate. I would never tell anyone to trust it 100% by any means, but that's really the selling point is that it is not kind of it's not an added kind of burden. And many of the general contractors that I've spoken to just really, they're kind of burnt out on a lot of the software, because at the end of the day, it's a learning curve to learn the software itself, and then how you want it to work for your business. How do you want it to format? How do you want your projects to work? And it's a lot of clicking. And so I worked with doctors in the past, and clicks are very important and a sticking point. And so if I can reduce, that's how I spend most of my day, is like looking at Babe and trying to see what can I remove and what can we remove to make it a little bit more streamlined and faster.
The Nashville Post Podcast series is proudly sponsored by Cumberland Pharmaceuticals, Nashville's specialty biopharmaceutical company. With a focus on innovation, Cumberland is working to develop new medicines for the future. The company also sponsors and operates Nashville's Life Sciences Center, which houses Cumberland's laboratories and supports the community as a home for emerging medical ventures. Cumberland is committed to improving patient care and to strengthening the life sciences sector of Tennessee's healthcare ecosystem. Learn more at cumberlandpharma.com. So I want to go back to some other industry sectors and how what you're doing with your greater company as an Adam app and the philosophy that you have to use AI to be an answer. How can you help other industries in the same way that you are with Babe?
So I would say the general philosophy of, and we've kind of spoken a little bit about this, but with the Adam app is really finding the end user and what are their concerns and their day-to-day problems, either with just their general process or, you know, what's their technology stack and how are they using it. And so my mantra is more of a kind of a apprentice, I guess, if you will, to where I want to know anything and everything about how you run your company. What do you do? I just kind of like to be a fly on the wall, kind of learn, understand, you know, what are your clients' needs, or, you know, any collaborators you have in your business, what have you. And then it's more of like a research problem. So, you know, can I build something that could just benefit you directly? That was the initial idea with Babe. But after talking with other general contractors and kind of looking at the market of construction, and that the vast majority, about 78% of all construction, happens in these smaller firms across the Southeast, 1 to 10 people, most of which are one single owner. And so that's what gets me energized and excited, is to bring AI directly to them in their day-to-day work. And really that could be a whole plethora of different things. I've worked with people in pest control, commercial electricians, just anything and everything that could potentially, if there are repeatable processes that they're doing each and every day that is quote unquote a time suck, how can we reduce that? Is there a way to reduce it? Is there a desire? And then once I'm kind of meeting their needs, then I kind of look at, okay, is this a product that really should be marketed, or is this more kind of a handoff to them?
How many of those kind of single one-offs have you done up to this point?
So Babe would be my main focus right now, and 3 other projects that I've worked on just kind of a consulting with the small business owners. So haven't found anything else right now that I'm actively pursuing in terms of a marketable product. But Babe really seems to be a good fit, and that's where 90% of all my energy is going right now, is to work with my alpha users kind of each and every day, like how's the projects going, what's not working, what is working well, researching what new AI models there are that we could implement into the back end that maybe Anthropic now has a model that's better on visualization for the floor plans than OpenAI is right now. And so really just talking with them, do you see any difference, what's working best? And so very early, I would say, in terms of my company, as well as my first kind of flagship product. But I just really enjoy working day to day with the end users. And so I kind of have my huddle of alpha users. And then once I make them whole and happy, that's when I'll really start kind of hitting the pavement and marketing Babe.
I think that's what's so good about this podcast in particular. We really want to talk to a variety of people who are either doing new kind of disruption things or have been industry disruptors for a long time in a lot of different ways. And so I love that we have you on to talk about doing something, brand new, and that AI gives people the capability to do that, I think is really unique in the time that we're in.
Absolutely. I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, this venture of babe of mine would likely need some venture capital and some investments, likely a team of more than just myself and a few people that I kind of ask their help for from time to time, just out of love. But the progression of AI coding and really just even database connections and all these things have really I've come a long way even in the last year. I would say, starting out with Babe, I was not an engineer, if you would, by any means, even though worked kind of on the front end of technology. Most of my past career was explaining to engineers and project managers, okay, doctors saying they need XYZ on this screen, this is why they need it, this is the expected outcome, and these are the goals. And that would have to churn through, 20 or 30 people to review it, make sure it's good, send it through. And, you have a 9-month project, and we're talking about adding a few buttons on a screen. Fast forward to, sometime last year, the quote unquote vibe coding got really big. And, I started trying it. I would say it was mostly, they call it AI slop. It was a viable product, looked kind of okay. But really over the last year, I guess, really started probably December, January, there was a very noticeable change I saw in the quality of the output of the code that's coming out. And it's not spending all night trying to correct 2 or 3 buttons. It's the AI coding tools, I think, right now are incredible. I mean, they're absolutely incredible. And so just kind of being through that journey, understanding like when it, it kind of was developing really bad things. And I've seen over the last 6 months, like this is a, very strong, product and code base. And yeah, I mean, it's just incredible what all it's has allowed, me to do independently of, again, finding venture capitalists to throw money my way. And it allows me to be small and nimble, which I love. If we need a change on the platform, I don't have to ask anybody. I just kind of go off and do it. And it's really changed kind of my outlook on, what I want to do with my career. I think I luckily had an incredible education through healthcare over 12 years to kind of learn how the technology stack can get kind of, outdated and not meeting the needs, or just being fully just diverted by various research projects that, someone from regulatory needs to capture this new thing on a screen that we have to send, to the government. And that can derail kind of a lot of things. And so now kind of having a lot of that experience and just background knowledge, I'm able to, I don't know how well I'm doing, but I think I'm able to kind of do the whole project in and of itself. The sales part is going to be tough. I think once I have a true strong feeling with my alpha group and it grows a little bit more, I likely will need some help on the sales side of things. But for the most part, I've been able to kind of run all aspects of it on my own, and that's just a shout out directly to, the frontier models of the AI companies.
That has just completely, changed the game for so many people if they weren't in the tech industry before. Now being able to get into it and do things that they would have never even thought they could do, right? And that's exactly what you're pointing to. And so I just want to take a minute and wrap on that and have you kind of tell me what that means to you in a more kind of emotional and human kind of way. Not even necessarily about your career or anything, but how has this technology changed your life?
Well, one thing I think it's given me a vast amount of independence and confidence in that. I knew that this time last year that, I was leaving kind of my corporate job. I really had a desire to have my name on something, really try and I really didn't know if it was going to be a business, if I was going to be consulting. I wasn't sure if I wanted to build product. I was kind of I knew I wanted to kind of go off on my own and build something on kind of on my own 2 feet. And very nervous at first, didn't think it was going to work. And then just through learning all these technologies and staying on top of what's coming out, what are the possibilities, it's given me immense amount of independence and the ability to build something that I don't necessarily would have to convince somebody that it's a good, this is the right product. Whether those be venture capitalists, partners that would help do the engineering, new cooks get in the kitchen, they can kind of sway design ideas, implementation ideas, and some of that is likely can be really, really beneficial, but I just wasn't really in a position where I wanted to start like a big company, lead more people, things like that. I kind of wanted to be independent and nimble, and AI just provides that. And so it's going to continue to, I think, grow in that regard. If you ask me about what does big software look like in the next 10 years, I really don't know. I think it's ever changing. I think a lot of technology has been able to meet the needs of a vast group, and I think they've done really well over the last 2 decades. But as we move forward in this AI journey, I think we're probably going to see a lot more smaller and smaller software companies that kind of do a niche thing or a custom thing for a client that doesn't cost $100,000 to $1 million on the, in terms of investment, building data centers, kind of all of that. It's freedom and kind of direction and getting something out there to learn if there is, a viable market very quickly before you even spend, all that money. Back in, 2016 to build something like Babe, before we would even know it'd be viable, we're probably $500,000 kind of like in the whole thing, and you're not really sure if it's going to work. And that's kind of the games that VCs play. They have a lot of different businesses under their wings, and usually only one makes it, but that one makes up for kind of all the other kind of failures. And with AI, it kind of gives you the privilege to kind of go off and figure that out on your own without really wasting a whole lot of resources and materials that may, never work. It's really just my time and my money. So
that's always the game with owning your own business. It's my time, which is the benefit, and my money, which is maybe the negative. But thank you so much for being here. I really think, I'm so interested in what you're doing with Babe from a personal standpoint. The Post writes a lot about construction and development industries, so I know our audience will be very interested in this too. And really just want to thank you for being here and sharing your experiences.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Nashville Post Podcast. Be sure to follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. And please help spread the word by sharing, rating, and reviewing the show. The Innovations and Ideas digital series is brought to you by the Nashville Post with support from Cumberland Pharmaceuticals. For more content like this, go to NashvillePost.com and follow us on LinkedIn or wherever you get your news. This episode was produced in partnership with Relationary Marketing and the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. Produced and engineered by Buckner, Chuck Bryant, AJ Meyers, Noah Kammer, and Amira McCall.